Friends and viewers, let us talk again about the myths and legends. Today, the myth which I had chosen for you, the story of the curse, the name of this story is The Curse of Echo. Echo, as all of you is well known, that echo means the word which vibrates. So, but the echo or Narcissus, they had an origin in Greek mythology. Narcissus has its own origin, and echo had its own. So Ovid, one of the story, the source of my stories taken from the Ovid, an old Greek writer who had written Metamorphosis. Echo was a lovely nymph, uh, and she used to wander in the and to entertain the gods and goddesses of Olympus, Mount Olympus, and one of the god, they punished Echo for her mischief, and she was punished, and the word was made silent, and the words had stolen from her, and only the last word which vibrates were given to her. So the last word always echo, vibrate, the last word. This story start like this, that what happened in the flowery grooves of Helicon. Echo was a fair nymph who hand in hand with her sisters sported along the green lawns with the sight of mountain stream. Among them all her feet were the lightest, and light in the merriest. So Echo was punished, and the word has taken from her, from her mouth, and the only last word which vibrate had given to her. Now what happened, that one day while Echo was roaming in the hunts and vales, it chanced by chance one day that the young Narcissus, we all, the word Narcissus, it is a name of flower, but here this word had an origin in a Greek myth. Narcissus strayed away from his companion in the hunt, and when he tried to find them, he only wandered further and lost his way upon the lonely heights of Helicon. He was now in the bloom of his youth. He was now nearing manhood, and fair as a flower, a very fair youth, and a very beautiful youth he was. The blue. So all who saw him straightway loved him and longed for him. But though his face was smooth and soft as maiden, his heart was hard as steel. And the while many loved him and sighed for him, they could kindle no answering flame in his breast. But he would spurn them and treat them with scorn and go on his way, nothing caring. When he was born, the blind seer Tiresias had prophesied concerning him, so long as he sees not himself, he shall live and be happy. What happened after his word came true? For Narcissus cared for neither man nor a woman, but only for his own pleasure. And because he was so fair, and all who saw him loved him for his beauty, he found it easy to get from them what he would. But he himself knew not of love, and therefore but of little of grief. For love at the best brings joy and sorrow hand in hand, and if unreturned, it brings naught but pain. Now when the nymph saw Narcissus wandering along through the wood. They too loved him for his beauty, and they followed him wherever he went. But because he was a mortal, they were shy of him and would not show themselves, but hide behind the trees and rocks so that he should not see them. Amongst the other, Echo followed him too. Now this Echo encountered the Narcissus. He followed him too. At last, when he found he had really wandered astray, he began to shout for one of his companions. Who dear, where art thou? He cried. Where art thou? Answered Echo. When he heard the voice, he stopped and listened, but he could not hear nothing more than he called again. I am here in the wood, Narcissus. In the wood, Narcissus, said he. Come hither, he cried. Come hither, she answered. This word started to vibrate, echoed, wondering at the strange voice which answered him. He looked all about him but could not see no one. Art thou closed at him? He asked. Wondering the more at seeing no one, he went forward in the direction of voice. Echo, when she found he was coming toward her, fled further so that when next he called, her voice sounded far away, but wherever she was, he still followed after her. She saw that she would not let her escape, for wherever she hid, if he called, she had to answer, and so show him for hiding place. But now they had come to an open space in the trees where the green lawn sloped down to a clear pool in the hollow. Here by the margin of the water she stood, and her back to the tall nodding bulrushes, and with her back and Narcissus came out from the trees. She wrung her hands, and the salt tears dropped from her eyes, and for she loved him and longed to speak to him, and yet she could not say a word. When he saw her, he stopped. Art thou who calls me? He asked. Who calls me? She answered. I have told thee, Narcissus, he said. Narcissus, she cried, and held out her arms to him. Who art thou? I asked. Who art thou? Said she. I have not told thee, impatiently, Narcissus. So as he grew yet more angry and began to abuse her, but every word of abuse, because Echo was cursed with the sound of vibration. Whatever the person says, she used to echo the same. At last, tired out with his wandering and without anger, he threw himself in the grass of the pool and would not look at her nor speak to her again. For a time she stood beside him, weeping and longing to speak to him and explain, but never a word could she utter. So at last, in her misery, she left him and went and hid herself behind a rock close by. After a while, when his anger had cooled down somewhat, Narcissus remembered he was very thirsty, and noticing for the first time the clear pool of water beside him, he bent over to the edge of the bank to drink. As he held out his hand to take the water, he saw, looking up towards him, a face which was the fairest face. He saw himself. He never saw himself in through all his life, but first time when he started to look onto the pond of water, his face reflected, and he saw himself, and which was the fairest face he had looked on, and his heart which never yet looked on, yet known what love was, at last was set on fire by the face in the pool. With a sigh, he held out both his arms toward it, and the figure also held out two arms of him, and Echo from the rock answered back his sigh. When he saw the figure stretching out toward him, heard the sigh, he thought that his love was returned, and he bent down closer to the water and whispered, I love thee. I love thee, answered Echo from the rock. At these words, he bent down further, tried to clasp the figure in his arm, but as he did so, it vanished away. The surface of the pool was covered with ripples, and he found he was clasping empty water to his breast, so he drew back and waited a while, thinking he had been over hasty. In time, the ripples died away, and the face appeared again as clear as before. Looking up at him, longing from the water, once again he bent towards it and tried to grasp it, and once again it fled from his embrace. Time after time he tried, and always the same thing happened, and at last he gave up in despair and sat looking down into the water, with a teardrop falling from his eyes, and the figure in the pool wept too and looked up at him with a look of longing and despair, because the figure in the water was his own reflection. So what happened? The longer he looked, the more fiercely did the flame of love burn in his breast, till at length he could bear it no more, but determined to reach the desire of his heart or die. So for the last time he leaned forward, and when he found that once again he was clasping the empty water, he threw himself from the bank into the pool, thinking that in the depths at any rate he would find his love. But he found nothing but death among the weeds and stones of the pool, and knew now not that it was his own face he loved reflected in the water below him. Thus were the words of the prophet fulfilled. So long as he sees not himself, he shall live and be happy. Echo, peeping out from the rock, saw all what happened, and when Narcissus cast himself into the pool, she rushed forward, all too late to stop him. But when she found she could not save him, she cast herself on the grass by the pool and wept till her flesh and her bones wasted away with weeping, and naught but voice remained, and the curse that was on her. So to this day she lives, a formless voice, hunting rocks and caves and vaulted halls. Herself no man had seen since the day Narcissus saw her, wringing her hands for love of him beside the nodding bulrushes, and no man ever shall see again. But her voice we all have heard, repeating out word when he thought that no one was by, and though now she will saw whatever we bide her. If once the curse were removed, the cry of her soul would be, Narcissus, Narcissus, my love, come back to me, by the side of the clear brown pool on the grass that Echo had watered with her tears. There sprang up a sweet scented flower with a pure white face and a crown of gold. And to this day, in many a land, men call that flower Narcissus, after the lad who, for the love of his own fair face, was drowned in the water of Helicon. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the sad story of Narcissus. Narcissus, this is a term we use, this is the name of a flower, a white flower, which grows on the side of the water pool. And in the old days, this Narcissus was a fair youth who saw his own reflection and fall in love with his own reflection. But because it was impossible, so he stared at his own reflection for thousands and thousands of years. At last, God have mercy and pity on him and turned him into a beautiful white flower. So, and the echo, her voice started to repeat and vault it and mm, uh, repeat it and in the valleys, in the hills, in the vaulted halls. So, this is the sad story of the echo and the Narcissus. I hope you will find it very interesting. Thank you very much.